right, welcome into Where There's a Will with Will Ford. I'm trying to start this show with some energy and some positivity, but unfortunately what we're going to talk about today, I'm not very happy about at all. I'm going to talk about the collapse of the Dallas Cowboys in the divisional round of the playoffs. We'll also predict, or not the divisional round, the wild card round. We'll predict the divisional round games at the very end, but you know what to do. Make sure you subscribe to this podcast, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, also on SoundCloud. And then you can watch the video form on my YouTube channel as well. And we put the link out on Facebook. So just search for Where There's a Will and you'll find it. And yeah, appreciate everyone that does listen, the few of you that do. But yeah, so the Dallas Cowboys knocked out in the divisional round, or I keep saying that, the wild card round of the playoffs by, of course, the Green Bay motherfreaking Packers. Over the years, throughout my childhood, the Packers have just crushed my hopes and dreams. That divisional round in 2014, the Dez catch, no catch, which changed the course of the NFL and what we define as a catch. And that should have went down as a catch. The Cowboys should have won that game more than likely. And who knows? I mean, history looks a lot different if that game goes a different way. 2016, Dak's rookie year, Tony Romo's last year in the league, backing up Dak after injury. The Cowboys were the number one seed and came out flatter than all hell against Green Bay, and they were able to storm back in the second half, but at that point it's kind of too little too late, and they were able to kick a field goal to win it. And then this year, you think you think Aaron Rodgers is gone, we don't have to worry about A-Rod anymore, and this is the year we kind of get by the Packers. They're a young team and the youngest team in the playoffs this year, and it was kind of a trap game for Dallas. They youngest team, no experience, so they're playing with house money, and they don't know any different. So they're just going to go in there and play. And I mean, they played hard. They played well. They played way better than Dallas did. Dallas just did not show up to play. It was 27-0 at one point in the first half before Dallas scored a touchdown to end the second quarter, which honestly they shouldn't have scored because Dak threw the ball short of the goal line. No timeouts to save yourself, and they got bailed out by a penalty, and so they had one more snap, which on that play Tyler Smith false started, and they did not call it, so Dallas got away with one, but they just did not show up in the first half. I mean, the Packers got the ball, went right down the field and scored, which is fine, but it just seemed like from there, it was like, oh man, we're gonna have to play from behind in this game. Like Green Bay came to play, we're not gonna be able to, just roll through them. They showed up and they balled out. Jordan Love looks like another hit at quarterback for Green Bay. They're going to go from Brett Favre to Aaron Rodgers, and now Jordan Love just looks like he has it. He looks like he's the next guy for the next decade. Dak threw 2 picks in the first half. The first one, I won't say, I think that was just a great play by Jair Alexander. You probably could have put the ball a little bit more on Brandon Cook's number, like on his chest. That's fine. I mean, you don't love it, but it happens, I guess. But the second pick, I mean, he was just absolutely fooled. He thought it was man coverage, which he identified at the line of scrimmage by motioning CeeDee Lamb from one side of the field to the left. But there was a robber. One of the safeties was acting as a robber and was reading the eyes of the quarterback, and Darnell Savage just stepped in. It was a triple slant on the left side, so you read outside to inside, window 1, 2, 3, and Dak just stared at CeeDee the whole time, which I feel like he has a tendency to do. I think Dak knows, which all quarterbacks know where they want to go with the football. They know where their first read is, but I feel like Dak kind of just stares it down. I mean, he is looking hard at it, and he will force it in there even if it's not open. If it's not open, if his first or second read's not open, I don't think Dak is the best. I don't think Dak is at his best past his first or second read. He is athletic and mobile, and he can extend plays when there's pressure, but that's different from when guys are just covered. If guys are just covered and he has to work through progressions, I don't think Dak is particularly elite at that. I think he just stares guys down. I think he knows where he wants to go. He decides it from the snap, and half the time he doesn't do a good job of reading that first read. I mean, he stared down CeeDee Lamb, and Darnell Savage was able to step right in. If you watch the replay, Brandon Cooks is wide open. He's the third window. He's the third read, and he's right in front of him. I mean, if he throws it to Cooks, he's in open space, and it's a decent gain, and instead it's a pick six. That play right there really, I mean, Dallas hadn't been playing well at that point. They were going to be down going into halftime, but you avoid a pick six, makes it a little bit. You might go into half down 27 to 14, and that's a lot more doable. And of course, Dallas got some cheap touchdowns at the end, but that third quarter was just abysmal as well. Dan Quinn's defense did not show up at all. Micah Parsons was nowhere to be found. Dan Quinn really hurt his chances of getting a head coaching opportunity. He's been linked to Seattle, which we can discuss another day if he ends up being hired there. But this loss for Dallas might be the most embarrassing loss in history for the franchise. Considering they were a number 2 seed, it's like 7 or 8 wins by blowout this year, by multiple scores, which is a recipe for Super Bowl teams. You have, 6, 7, 8 blowout wins by, multiple scores during the season. But the thing is they beat up on bad teams. They only beat 1 or 2 teams throughout the regular season that had winning records at the time. Would have been Seattle and the Detroit Lions, which they shouldn't have beat. They were not good against the teams that were great, like Buffalo. Miami, I don't think is a great team, but they're a good and above 500 team. Dallas couldn't beat them. And then this Green Bay team, young, hotter than ever, and a rookie quarterback that has improved. Well, not rookie, but first year starting. His improvement from like mid-season to now is nothing short of remarkable. And Dallas just did not show up to play. And to be honest with you, I would have fired Mike McCarthy and the entire staff. They would have been on the first flight out of Dallas if it was me. That's what I said as soon as the game was finished. Of course, like I'm emotional and I'm sick over it, but it's eliminate McCarthy's first year because Dak broke his leg and his ankle, finished 6-10. That's fine. Eliminate his first year. It's 3 straight years of 12 wins and poor playoff performances. One great game against the Tampa Bay Bucks, who, let's be honest, I mean, outside of Brady, they weren't really a great team that year. They limped into the playoffs and promptly exited. Any other team would have blown them out, in the first round last year. So, that's your one playoff win, and then you get destroyed by San Fran twice, and then this. I mean, this just is not. This is not it. And I thought, Jimmy Johnson was fired up at halftime. I think a lot of people thought he was joking. No, that was Coach Jimmy coming out. I think Jimmy Johnson's fed up. Troy Aikman's fed up. Michael Irvin's fed up. They're all fed up of what Dallas has done over the last 25 years since, the triplets did what they did in the 90s. I mean, the standard in Dallas is Super Bowls. That's it. And they haven't made it to a conference championship since 1995, 1996, whatever, since before I was born. And this was the year to go back to an NFC championship. If you're not going to make it to a Super Bowl, you at least had to make it to an NFC championship because you're hosting a playoff game against Green Bay. You win, you're going to host another playoff game, a divisional round to go to the NFC championship. So you would have hosted, more than likely, you beat Green Bay, you're probably going to host Detroit. You host Detroit again. I wouldn't love my chances against Detroit, but it's a home playoff game and a chance to go back to the NFC championship for the first time in 30 years. I think Mike McCarthy had to do at least that. Win the wild card, win the divisional, and go to the NFC Championship against more than likely San Fran to retain his job. And he did not. And unfortunately, like, I just don't know why you would continue beating a dead horse. Like, I don't know why you're continuing to roll out the same staff, roll out the same roster, and to expect different results. Things are not going to change. This was the best year of Dak's career. This regular season was fantastic for him. He's a second team All Pro, probably going to finish in the second in the MVP running. It was a great year. But in the playoffs, he sucks. He shrinks. I would argue he's like, you can say what you want about Tony Romo, and Tony Romo and Dak do have the same playoff record, 2-5. But a lot of what Romo, like, not a lot of that was on Tony Romo. A lot of people think that Romo was, a turnover machine in the fourth quarter, and sure, he did have some crucial fourth quarter interceptions, but there was a lot more focus on those because he's the Cowboys quarterback and it's America's team and it's national television and it's in big spots. But he's got the second highest quarterback rating in the fourth quarter all time in NFL history. Tony Romo was not the problem in Dallas when he was trying to lead his team to the playoffs. The problem with Romo's teams in Dallas is that they didn't have a good enough offensive line or a good enough defense until really the last couple of years of his career. And at that point, he was too beat up. Back injuries, broke his collarbone a couple different times. I mean, Romo was running for his life for the first 8 years of his career. And by the time Jerry finally figured out, like, we've got to build offensive line and we've got to have a at least middle of the pack defense, it was too late. I mean, that 2016 team, Dak and Zeke's rookie year, that was the best team that Romo would have ever had, and he got hurt. And I think Romo is better than Dak has been through this point in his career. And I have a soft spot for Romo. I'm a Cowboys fan. Obviously, I'm going to appear biased, but I just think if you look at what Romo's done versus what Dak's done, I think Romo is a better quarterback than Dak Prescott has been. It's been a great year for Dak, but it's 8 years into his career, and we're finally saying this is the best we've seen of Dak. And he is now 30 years old. So, and he's going to get paid. He's going into the last year of his contract, so he's probably going to get extended this year. His cap hit going into next year will be $60 million. So you're not going to be able to retain some of your free agents. I mean, you're going to lose Tyron Smith on the offensive line more than likely. He's been injury prone, but he was great this year. You have some guys on defense that you're not going to be able to keep, and you might have to wait another year to try to extend Micah Parsons and other guys that you have on your roster. Like, if you paying Dak and extending him will alleviate some of next year's cap hit. That'll make things a little bit easier. But I mean, Dak's probably going to command a 5-year, $300 million contract. Like, it's going to be like $60 million. Because what's the top contract right now? Like 55. Like, you're going to pay Dak $60 million? No. Dak is a top 10 to 14 quarterback. He's not in the top 10. We'll do a top 10 rankings list another day, but he's not a top 10 quarterback. And to pay him as if he's a top 5 quarterback, no team the model of winning a Super Bowl is you have a 100% superstar quarterback and he's paid as such, or you have a really cheap quarterback who is young, on their rookie deal or something. That is the method to getting to the Super Bowl. But if you pay a mid quarterback high end dollars, it doesn't work. It just truly does not, because you need a better roster around that mid quarterback to succeed. You need a better roster, and paying Dak $60 million is just not the way to do it. But I think Jerry Jones is missing the boat here by not firing Mike McCarthy. I'm not sure why he would try to continue to roll out the same thing to expect different results. It's not going to happen. And this is truly the greatest coaching cycle I think we've ever had in the history of the NFL. You have the most accomplished coach of all time in Bill Belichick with an offensive coordinator in his back pocket and Josh McDaniels. So those two are more than likely a package deal. They're available. Mike Vrabel, he's not. I said in an earlier podcast that he's part of the Belichick tree. He's actually not, but he played for Belichick. So in a roundabout way, he is, but not. He's not a part of the coaching tree. But he has been phenomenal in Tennessee. And then Jim Harbaugh is coming back to the NFL more than likely, and he has worked everywhere he goes. You have some really terrific young OCs that are out there on the market that could be like the next McVay or Shanahan or Shane Steichen or Mike McDaniel. I mean, you have Ben Johnson out there, Bobby Slowick. If you want to take a swing on those guys, I'd be less inclined to do that. But if you did, I would understand it because that's the way the league is trending is offense. But like you're telling me that you're not going to, gauge some interest on Bill, on Vrabel, on Harbaugh. I mean, why not? I mean, come on. It doesn't make any sense why you wouldn't kick the tires on that. I really, truly don't know the reasoning for why Jerry would continue to bring back Mike. I know that Dak had his best season, but this team didn't beat the good teams that they needed to beat. They beat up on the bad teams. And that's gonna be the story next year if they roll out this same team, same coaching staff, same roster, everything. The only thing that I can think of, and I saw this, Jason McIntyre on the herd with Colin Cowherd on FS1, put this out there. It makes a little bit of sense. I'm not sure how realistic it is, but it makes some sense. What if you keep Mike McCarthy because the plan is next year? I mean, it's the end of Mike's contract. You just let him go. What if you coax Deion Sanders out of college football and get him to leave Colorado to come coach the Dallas Cowboys, and Shedeur Sanders comes out in the draft next year? You let Dak walk in free agency, or you facilitate a trade of some kind, and you draft Shedeur Sanders. It's a very attractive sounding thing on paper, but I don't. Deion Sanders has said he doesn't want to come coach the NFL. Now, maybe if he gets in a room with Jerry Jones and Jerry convinces him, maybe he would. I don't know. It doesn't seem entirely realistic to me, but on paper, it sounds very attractive. You get Prime, who's a Cowboy for life, and you get a rookie quarterback on a cheap deal. You can maintain your roster, build your roster for 4 years, and it seems like it's going to be a good quarterback prospect in Shedeur Sanders. Like I feel like if Shedeur came out this year, he would certainly be the second or third quarterback taken in the draft next year. Probably the first. I don't know who else would be coming out potentially in the draft next year, but he might be the number one quarterback in the draft next year. Are the Cowboys going to have the number one pick? No, they'll be good enough to obviously to not have the number one pick. But I mean, maybe if you trade Dak, get assets, and you're able to move up and get Shedeur, why not? It sounds very attractive on paper. Just not sure if it's entirely realistic. But man, I would have absolutely tried to bring in a guy like Bill Belichick, Vrabel, Harbaugh. It's the best coaching cycle we've ever had. And instead, we're going to continue with mediocrity. Yeah, like the Cowboys probably win 11, 12 games next year. But I'm not excited about it. Like, I'm not excited to wait until September to start watching some football again. There's not going to be any more come ons from me sitting on my couch watching, like, yes, let's go. Like, no, I'm not going to be excited. Like, sure, we'll be in the playoffs probably. We'll win 11, 12 games. We might win the division. Who knows? But it ain't good. I mean, I'm not excited about it because we're just going to get bounced in the first round or maybe the second round if we manage to squeak by. It's just that loss to Green Bay was the most embarrassing loss I can think of. I mean, it was what, 48-14 at one point or whatever it was. I don't remember now. I mean, I literally stopped watching midway through the third. I couldn't do it. And I love the Cowboys. I mean, die hard. I know a lot about them. Now, if you quiz me, I'd probably freeze in front of you. But like, I know a lot about Cowboys history. I live and breathe Dallas Cowboys football. I've been so passionate about it for years. I've cried after losing games. I've cried after winning games that I thought we were going to lose. But it's hard to love a team that is unwilling to get out of its own way, change the status quo, and just take a big mother freaking swing, man. I mean, go get one of those upper echelon coaches because you will be better for it. Maybe not next year, but the year after that. I mean, come on. It just seemed like a no brainer. And I'm honestly like, I don't know. I don't know what you do because Cowboys they'll be good next year, but it's like I don't want good. I want great. I want an NFC championship game. I want to go to a Super Bowl. That's not going to happen. So I'm already mailing it in for the 2024-2025 season. Already mailed in. We'll get bounced in like you don't believe any hype. Me and a lot of my friends were telling me this year, like Cowboys are a Super Bowl team. I'm like, I'll believe it when I see it, man. Like I know how we are. We'll look great through the regular season at different points. People are going to say we're Super Bowl bound. People going to pick us to go to the Super Bowl. Just wait. I will believe it when I see it, man. I'll believe it when I see it. But divisional round games that are going on this weekend. So on the AFC side, we've got the Chiefs Bills, another matchup in that. I would say rivalry. Is it even a rivalry? Like the Chiefs, other than this year when the Bills won, like the Chiefs have really just dominated that series, that matchup. And we think of Mahomes Allen as a rivalry, but Mahomes has won every time except one, and it was this year. And you know, if an offsides penalty wasn't called, the Chiefs probably win that one. Like it's been one sided. That's not a rivalry. But I get what people are saying. But that's in Buffalo. It's gonna be cold, snowy. I think the line right now is Bills -3. At least it was earlier in the week. I don't know what it is on a Friday. I like the Chiefs though. I don't think you can bet against Mahomes in a playoff game. This is where they thrive. Their defense is spectacular, and Josh Allen is very turnover prone. So I think it's low scoring. I think the defense for KC plays great. I think Josh Allen makes one critical mistake, and the Chiefs win close, and they go back to the AFC Championship where they've been for the last handful of years. The other side, I think Baltimore is in some real trouble against Houston. I mean, Houston, a young team in these playoffs, rookie coach, rookie quarterback, they have nothing to lose at all. They absolutely smacked the Browns. And CJ Stroud, man, he's been incredible. And the Ravens, I've never been a big fan of that bye. Now, if you're an older team, experienced team in the playoffs, and you've got some injuries, first round bye is really good for your team. But I'm also a big fan of momentum as well. And if you take a week off, I mean, you halt any momentum that you have. And so you might start off a little bit sluggish against these Texans. And Texans, against the Colts to win the division, that was technically a playoff game for them. If they win, they win the division, get in the playoffs. Um, First play of the game, CJ Stroud hit Nico Collins for like 80-yard touchdown. I mean, this offense, it's no joke. So, but the Baltimore Ravens defense is no joke either. But the line, I believe, was it Ravens -9 or -9.5? I think that's too many points to give Houston. And so I would take Houston in that. But I think I would just take Houston money line and take them to win. I do think I think this is an upset alert game. And that's who I'm rolling with on the AFC side. On the NFC side, Green Bay, San Francisco is really interesting. That's also a similar line, 9.5. Again, I don't know if it's changed since earlier in the week, but Green Bay plus 9.5 or 9 or whatever it is, that's also way too many. I would take Green Bay in that spot to cover, but San Fran, I think, would win the game. I think rest is really going to benefit them. Um, they have an older offensive line, Trent Williams. CMC gets banged up a lot. He needs rest. George Kittle. So a lot of those guys, I think, benefit from having a bit of rest. Now, it might be too much rest, though, because a lot of them sat out in week 18 last week of the regular season. So some of these guys is 2 weeks off. For your guys like Trent Williams, I don't think that's that big of a deal. I think that it's really good. But for your quarterback, Brock Purdy, he might be out of rhythm in the first half. And Green Bay playing the way they were, like, I think this is going to be a close game. This feels like a 35-27 game, maybe 35-30, but I would lean San Francisco. And then Detroit versus Tampa. This one's really interesting. This one seems like a push to me almost because Tampa looked great against Philly, although Philly's leaking some major oil out of the machine. But Baker looked good and that offense looked good. And Detroit, I mean, they're an incredible story. I think that's like the second most expensive um, tickets for a playoff game, like average price, like ever or something like that. Like it's over $1,000 is average ticket price to go to the Lions divisional round playoff game. That's pretty crazy. I think Tampa is a live underdog in that game. I don't know what the line is for it. I think that's gonna be close, and I don't know. Detroit has the better team though. My guess is Detroit wins, and we have a Detroit San Francisco NFC Championship. But man, it would be really cool if Tampa and the Bucks went back with Baker Mayfield. That would be insane, man. Pretty cool. But that'll wrap things up for Where There's a Will with Will Ford. Really appreciate you making it part of your day. And make sure you subscribe to the podcast on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, SoundCloud, on YouTube. And we'll put the link out on Facebook as well. Just search Where There's a Will. But we'll see you next week after the divisional round of the playoffs. See you later. This is Where There's a Will.